Joining me now is Judiciary Committee member Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland. Congressman Raskin, you and I have gone through the semantics of the words, and I don't want us to go through that round and round again. But let me just ask it this way. If the nomenclature doesn't matter, then why not open the formal inquiry?
There's no such thing as a formal inquiry under the Constitution or the rules of the House. So we are in an impeachment investigation, and everybody's agreed to it. There's really no ambiguity left. If anything, the confusion's on the Republican side now, because some of them describe this as a political earthquake, like if you listen to Jim Jordan today, and some of them think it's a gentle summer breeze and it's no big deal. And all of it really turns on what comes out in these investigations. And they're not about congressional process. They're about the criminality and the lawlessness of Donald Trump and his White House.
You've heard Speaker Pelosi talk about how divisive impeachment is, right? And this issue of the political versus the moral obligation. Look, you're in a district, you're safer. You don't have to worry about that D versus R aspect. Perhaps you have to worry about a D versus D issue. How sensitive are you to that when you hear Speaker Pelosi talk about how divisive and, frankly, then how much it could maybe cost you the majority?
Well, look, first of all, the Republicans are dropping like flies around here. They are leaving in droves. That's not true of the Democrats, which is a pretty good signal of who people think is going to be in control of the next
That's
Congress.
very true. That's very true.
And we see public sentiment shifting completely in the direction of the Democrats generally. Look, of course, there are divisions about what is the end game of all of the investigations into the criminality of the Trump White House. And that's a division that is within each member as well as within the caucus. Nobody really knows what to do. And so we've never had a presidency like this before. We wake up every day with a profusion of new events where he is disparaging citizens and trashing the Constitution and violating the law and so on. So, I mean, it's a very complicated situation. Put yourself in our shoes. So, we're going to try to focus on this and prioritize the best that we can. I'm very focused on the president using the government as an instrument of self-enrichment, the violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause by pocketing payments from Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and so on, and his violation of the Domestic Emoluments Clause by steering government money directly into his hotels and resorts. I think the public is starting to get the point that he's been running the White House as a money-making operation for himself and his family.
Well, look, I politically, I think focusing on what he's done in office, you would assume perhaps has more resonance politically with the electorate than if you start relitigating older stuff. Does that mean, I noticed you didn't bring up his behavior during Mueller, and you haven't brought up his behavior on Russia. As much as you may believe there are impeachable offenses that took place there, is that an acknowledgement that that issue is just less fruitful in what you're trying to do?
I don't think so, Chuck. I think it's been thoroughly investigated at this point. We still need some witnesses to come forward to tell it from their perspective. But I think what's critical, and I just speak for myself, is to put it in the context of his whole career. Trump is a businessman, albeit a failed businessman who went bankrupt 5 or 6 times, but he got wrapped up with the Russians because no American bank would lend to him, and he ended up going to the Russian oligarchs who were busy looting the money of the Russian people and laundering it through Trump enterprises, the hotels and apartments. That's how Vladimir Putin got his hooks into him. And so I think a story about the money, following the money, will make sense to the American people because I think it corresponds to the reality of the situation. You know, Donald Trump said about Mueller, if he looks at my finances, I will destroy the investigation. And that tells us precisely where we need to go.
You know, I had a fellow member of Congress of yours, somebody who's been around a little bit, say to me, the problem when you talk about everything you're trying to investigate with the president, and I think you heard us in this conversation earlier, the problem that the Democrats have is that they have a lot of second and third articles, and that politically, whether you like it or not, you need your lead item to have a narrative to it. I know that's a bit cynical to say it that way, but I think I get that. Do you share that sort of frustration that whether you like it or not, if you do something like this, you have to have a story to tell?
Well, I guess in Donald Trump world, these are a lot of very good second and third articles. For any other president of the United States, they would be article number 1. Any of them violating
Touché.
the Emoluments Clause, violating the Federal Election Campaign Act. Remember, the Republicans impeached Bill Clinton for telling one lie about an affair. Just look at one corollary event in the life of Donald Trump, where in order to cover up not one but 2 affairs, they violated the Federal Election Campaign Act 4 or 5 times by channeling illegal corporate contributions, illegal conduit contributions 10 or 15 times higher than the limit, and they didn't report any of them, and they covered all of them up. So you could just match those 2 with something that the Republicans already declared as impeachable, and then I think we get to the really big stuff, that is opening the doors of America to a foreign intervention in our election, obstructing justice 8 or 9 different times to cover it up, and then using the government of the United States as a for-profit business for yourself and your family.
Congressman, do you envision, whether you file articles of impeachment, whether you vote them out or not, do you imagine that there will be a report that the Judiciary Committee will submit to the American people of sort of your investigation of the finances of the President of the United States?
Well, I think that's a great question. If we get the materials we've been trying to obtain in a lot of different committees, in the Oversight Committee and the Ways and Means Committee and so on, if we get the president's taxes, which remember he promised us several years ago, and which every other president has turned over, I think that we will have the keys to unlock a lot of the critical questions that face us. I think that there will be a report to the American people. You know, some people are saying we shouldn't go down the road of impeachment articles just to let it sit on Mitch McConnell's desk with 175 other bills, like our gun safety bills that are just sitting over there. We should send a report instead to the American people and say the Senate is not performing its constitutional duty, but we're going to perform ours, and we're going to let the world know exactly what's taken place in this White House. We cannot just turn the other cheek.
Yeah, if you come up with an indictment, share it with the public. Anyway. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.